Welcome to Divorce the Next Chapter podcast. My name is Jana. I am your host. I am a survivor of a narcissistic relationship and marriage for 19 years. I am a single mom. I am a nurse, and I know something about this topic. It's very personal. So the topic we're talking about today is the covert narcissist. That's right. There are different forms of narcissism, and the covert one is the one that I experienced. So I think that a lot of women have confusion about narcissism because they don't realize that they're not always the loud, boisterous, charming people at the party, and that behind the scenes they're gaslighting you. Like they're not always presenting themselves like that. There are covert, they hide behind the mask, they put up a great facade, they play the victim really well, and that's how they rope you in. So it's not like your traditional love bombing. It's a different form. It's the feel bad for me. Look at me, feel bad for me. And as women, as fixers, as healers, we fall right into that trap. And that's what happened to me. So they are totally the wolf in sheep's clothing. So, like, who doesn't like wolves in sheep's clothing, right? Of course. They're the best villains of all. That's what they are. They're the ninjas of narcissism. They're quiet, they're subtle, and they're deadly. They crave admiration and validation, but do it under the radar. They fly under that radar all the time. That's their MO. They manipulate with massive guilt trips. Passive aggressive. They play the victim. Masters of twisting the truth to make themselves innocent or seem innocent while secretly pulling the strings to stay in control of you. Sound familiar? Any of that sound familiar? Because I'm not talking about the ones that are at the party and they're the life of the party, but everybody knows them as the greatest guy in the world, and you're so great, and you'll do anything, and they'll give the shirt off the back. But behind closed doors, they are a completely different person. This is a little bit different in the way that they present themselves. But make no mistake that behind closed doors, they're that different person, okay? So 3 common examples on how they present themselves. And these are very common across the board. I'm not saying that these are the only 3 because they're not, but these are the most common, okay? The most common is they play the self-pity victim. The poor me, look at me, feel bad for me. I've done so much for everybody, but I just, nobody appreciates me. Or I'm so sorry that was, a product of my childhood, and feel bad for me that I had a fucked up childhood, and that's why I'm the adult that I am. No, okay? They revolve themselves. Every conversation leads back to the same road of how they suffered and how they suffered in life. And they're doing that to get sympathy. They're doing that to manipulate you. They're doing that to rope you in. And it fucking works. It works. It's the feel bad sympathy card. And that's what they're pulling. And it pulls the strings. And when we're younger and when we don't know any better and when we're naive to this, it works. Because as a woman, you're a natural, I want to fix them. And that's what maybe bonds you together. It's a trauma bond. So they're creating that trauma bond. They have a problem. You're the fixer. They bond with you over that. And then you're in. Another, number 2, is the passive-aggressive ghost. So wait, before I get into this, so the self-pity victim, I'm going to tell you how I identify with this, okay? The self-pity victim is what happened to me. That was the grab. So and I'm not dismissing any of the shit that happened in his childhood because it was really fucked up, okay? I'm not dismissing it whatsoever. But the product of that he didn't healthy heal when he was a kid. And when you don't healthy heal, they say that narcissists are created from some sort of childhood trauma that they didn't heal from, and they had to cope in the fight or flight. And their coping mechanisms, because they're a kid, are not the same as what you would cope as an adult. And that's where the beginnings of the narcissism happens. And that's textbook what happened. And he used his traumatic events as a child as the crux to the feel bad for me. And when I was younger and just with him, I was just becoming a nurse. I was just graduating nursing school. And that's what he roped me in on. The feel bad for me, help me fix myself. I want to undo what was done. You would say, I'm trying to untwist my twisted, something like that. So this is how he roped me in. And I'm sure that some of you can identify with that, whether it was, a different situation, but kind of the same script, So the self-pity victim is huge in the covert narcissism aspect. Okay, so number 2, the passive-aggressive ghost. They'll give you the silent treatment or subtly undermine you with snide remarks, disguised as jokes, making you feel guilty without ever outright saying it. So the silent treatment, I've talked about this in a previous podcast. The silent treatment is a huge narcissism tactic. It's made to make you basically go crazy. It's made to isolate you, to manipulate you, to feel bad about what you did. Well, you didn't do anything. We know you didn't do anything. But the silent treatment is something that they use as tactic. And it could be a day, it could be a week, it could be months. In my situation, it was 2.5 months. Dead ass. 2.5 months. And in that 2.5 months, I had already made up my mind that if things weren't going to change, that I was going to make that change. And that summer, so my journey started March of 2018, my awakening, we'll call it. And I had set a deadline of Labor Day weekend, which is September, the usually first or second weekend of September. And during that period of time, in the summertime, in July, I used to take my older daughter, to a bowling tournament that was national, and it was in different places. And I think this year it was either in Dallas or in Cleveland. I don't remember, but it was far. So we were gone for almost 10 days. And when we came back, the house was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. The deal was I was taking her and my youngest daughter, who was like a toddler at the time, because he was going to stay and work on the house and paint the living room and the hallway and the kitchen, which the kitchen was like one little tiny piece of wall. Everything else was tiled. Anyway, so when I got back, nothing was done. Everything was taped. All the fixtures were removed off the walls and stuff, but there was no paint. So we got into an argument, and his response was the silent treatment. And I always say that silent treatment was actually the best thing he ever could do for me. at that period of time because I had already made up my mind on what was going to happen. So, and at the end of the silent treatment, I said, I want a divorce. So that was the best gift you ever got me because I could clear my head. Now, I know most people aren't at that stage when they get handed the silent treatment, but the silent treatment is a narcissist tactic, and it just happened to backfire on him because I had already made up my mind on what I was doing. So that's the passive-aggressive ghost. Very passive-aggressive in all different aspects. Okay? Number 3, the chameleon of charm. They're a chameleon. They put up this great freaking facade. They're the perfect partner. Their Facebook posts look like we have the perfect family. And to everybody else, they tell like how great everything is. And their job is great. And their house is great. And look what I do. And blah, 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 blah. They are the chameleon of charm. Initially, they're the perfect partner. Initially, they give you compliments. They're attentive. They're empathetic. But it's all a performance. It's all performative. Once they've secured your trust, once they've gotten you, that's when it starts. That's when they turn cold. That's when they are critical. That's when they're dismissive, making you question your judgment, making you question yourself. That's when it kicks in. After they know that they've gotten you because they were charming, that's how they get you. And it could also be after they know they got you because they've played the victim card and you're wrapped now into helping them, then they got you. Once they know that they got you, that's when it starts. So how does this all present? How does it all present? They come across as caring, sensitive, vulnerable, yet beneath that surface lies manipulative need for control. Humble, but they're secretly in constant demand of admiration. Defense mechanism is deflect responsibility, which we all know. There's zero responsibility or accountability on any of their actions. It's always somebody else's fault. They are blaming someone, which is scapegoating, right? So somebody is the target of their scapegoat. And eventually that target becomes you. So this is another covert narcissistic thing that rings true with myself. When I was first dating him, I didn't know any better, basically. And he would basically use his mother as his scapegoat. His mother had been his scapegoat until I entered the picture. And it was always, she was holding me back from this. She, didn't support me. She never came to he was, different tournaments that he was in and different sports. She didn't, everything was always her fault. I didn't get this job because of this. I didn't do what I wanted to do, my dream job, because she held me back. When I realized years and years later and now out of this and reflecting on everything, it's not that she was holding him back. Yes, she did have her own mental health problems. But she knew as a mom that he had these problems way back when. And she was trying to guide him into the right direction. And it just all went haywire. So, but it was always somebody else's fault throughout the whole entire relationship. And when his mom moved down out of the country, when she went back to her original country, to retire, and she wasn't doing it full time at this time, but when she removed herself and I came in the picture, then slowly over the years, I became the scapegoat. And that's why I didn't really realize what was going on, is because it was kind of like a frog in a pot of hot water boiling. And I was just simmering and I had no idea. The water was only warm. until she removed herself. Then the boil started. So their deflecting responsibility and accountability is 100% pinning the blame on others. It's scapegoating, and it's part of the narcissism in any kind of narcissism. But in the covert narcissist, it presents a little bit different because they play the victim and then manipulate you. So how do we shut down the BS? So now you're removed from the situation. You've gotten yourself out of it, or at least separated from it. You've recognized it. You know that it's happening. And now how do you shut that down? Whether it's an ex or not an ex, right? So there are many, many, many statements that you could do and say that will shut down the narcissist response instantly. I'm going to give you 3, but like I said, there's many ways. The most important thing with anything that you say is you cannot say anything to give them a reaction. You cannot be emotional to give them a reaction. They're baiting you into you reacting to them. And once you react, then they know they got you. So the key is not to react. As hard as that is, because that is so hard. I've been there, I know it. And you just want to defend yourself. You just want to set the story straight. But what you're not realizing is they don't care about the facts. They don't care about the reality of whatever the situation was that happened. They don't care about your emotions. They don't care that they hurt your feelings. They don't care. They care about the control and the manipulation, and that to them is the fire. So once you cut it off, they have no more control over you. And that's what it's about. That's how you shut them down, okay? So I'm going to give you 3 statements, examples that you could use in your conversations. If you're so lucky to break it and walk away and not have any attachment to them, fantastic. But I guarantee you, the narcissist lingers. And if you have kids, this is especially important. If you have kids together, like I do, this is especially important. This will prevent you from hours upon hours of arguing over text message and trying to explain yourself, because what I'm telling you is they don't care about your explanation. They don't care about the reality. They care about the narrative that they created and doing everything possible to validate that narrative that they create. Okay? So here. That's interesting. I'll consider what you said. No emotion. No eliciting a response. Just straightforward. Sounds polite, but you're acknowledging their comment without giving it any weight. Okay? It keeps the communication superficial and limits the grip on you. Okay? That's interesting. I'll consider what you said. Period. End. Okay? Here's another one. Thanks for sharing your feelings, but I'll handle it on my own. Sets a boundary without escalating. Again, no emotion, no eliciting a response. Reminds them that their opinion is not the boss of you. They're not the fucking boss of you. Okay? They do not have control over you anymore. Their thumb is not on you anymore. The manipulation's not going to work. Thanks for sharing your feelings, but I'll handle it on my own. And the third one, which is my favorite one. Okay. Period. Okay. Simple, blunt, and effective. You hear them, but you're not engaging in their drama. So if they say something to you or text you something, your initial response is going to be that you want to defend yourself, that you want to set the record straight, you want to prove that you're right. What I'm telling you is that they don't care about any of those things. They're saying things to you to elicit a response. And you're going to shut it down by saying, okay, period. Send the text. Okay? They thrive on reactions. So if you give them this minimal response, there is no reaction to be had. Okay? It completely short circuits their narrative and their playbook. Because now they don't have a response to go on from you. They didn't elicit anything out of you. You just say, okay. So here's a trick. Because I know that we want to text message a whole novel. That didn't happen, blah, 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 and you, and blah, and 300 words later, you got a novel, and you hit send. They're not fucking reading that. They're not reading that. Instead, okay, send. And then if you need to get all of that out, open up your notes app and type all of it out, and then erase it. Okay? Just to get it out of your system. But whatever you do not send that 300-worded novel of a text message to them, because they are waiting for it. Because all they're thinking is, when they see that novel, I got her. That's all they're thinking. So my favorite, number one response statement is, okay, send. That's it. Shut that shit down immediately. And if they send you something next, another text message, either no response at all, leave that shit on red, or okay. And a bonus. Another response bonus is, you know that's not what happened. But we're going to save that one in our pocket. We're not going to put that one out there yet, okay? My number one favorite. Okay, that's it. No more of these novel responses. No more of these crazy long, emails, text messages, voice messages, whatever it is. Your response is, okay, shut that shit down immediately. So what this does, any of these responses, when you take the emotion out of the response, when you just respond that it's not going to elicit a reaction from you, okay, whatever they are saying to you. It's blunt enough to shut down the manipulation, but calm enough to avoid triggering their need to escalate. When they realize they can't get a rise out of you, they're going to stop. Because it's not about winning fights. It's about protecting your peace and asserting your boundaries. That's what this is about. By feeding into their bullshit, because it's bullshit and you know it, that does not protect your peace. That gives you all of the post-traumatic responses. Line them up, okay? But protecting your peace is realizing what's going on, having a good response, and just saying okay. Or any of the other responses, okay? That's what the goal is. Protecting your peace and asserting your boundaries. Because if you don't, they're going to continue to manipulate and control you. So, if you survived a narcissist, you know how unbelievably exhausting it's mentally, psychologically, physically exhausting. Okay? But now we're going to transition because you survived that. We're now going to thrive. Okay? You're smarter, you're stronger, and you're going to be unapologetically yourself. Use these tools. If you want more tools, I have Divorce Survival Guide on my website. It's a very quick guide that helps you jumpstart into your healing journey. So you could check it out on my website. My link's in my bio. And until next time, stay tuned. Divorce the Next Chapter. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. And you can find me here on YouTube. I hope everybody has a great week. And I'll see you soon. Love you.